Have you ever heard the saying, never meet your heroes? You have? Okay. Have you ever heard this saying? Never meet your heroes until you've developed a 5-year relationship with them in which you know their insides and outs, and even after that 5-year relationship was verified, still look over your shoulder left and right because one day they could wake up, catch you lacking and shoot you square in the face. You've never heard that saying? Well, it's a lie, but the people of Tanzania might see it a bit differently. Well, if you do not know what nation Tanzania is, it is a country located in Africa, East Africa to be specific, and it was not always known as Tanzania. At first, it was divided colonies, one called Tanganyika and the other one Zanzibar Achilopod. I really hope I am pronouncing these names right. If I'm not, I am so sorry. Anyways, Tanzania's story is a very interesting one, but we're going to begin with its dominating party, CCM, also known as Chad Chamana Chapinzu. Okay, you know what? I'm going to write it. I can't butcher the nation's name and then their party and, so on and so forth. Anyway, so CCM has a long history of being the dominating party in Tanzania, and I'm going to focus on two central figures from their party, which is the last president, President John Magufuli, and the current president, President Salami Suluhu. Forgive me once more if I'm butchering their name. Anyways, President John was a very, very, very interesting character, and you will see why. When President John came to power, his government had a lot of, interesting reforms, very nice reforms. They came in, they said, hey, corruption, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna have a lot of budget cuts. You know what I'm saying? He was so serious about the budget cuts that he reduced his cabinet size from, I think, 30 to 19 just to save down on costs. He reduced exorbitant spending, such as lavish parties that he threw, country parties. I remember it's something about some Senate party. I know it's like, hey, we're not gonna do that. There's no money for that. And I know them people who had been in the government before him were like, we don't like him. There are always people like that. Anyways, then he also increased Tanzania's state ownership in their gold mines and natural resources, pushing back against, foreign control. You know what I'm saying? Like he did well. Under him, Tanzania actually flourished. Their tourism and economic status went up. Tanzania as a nation flourished beautifully under him. Under him. His government did very well from all accounts. But then I found a lot of strange things about him. Would I say strange or controversial? Anyways, one of them was his intolerance for free speech. Like under John Magufulu's government, a lot of free speech was censored. Like he closed down a lot of media houses. A lot of political oppositions were suppressed. A lot of political opposition figures were arrested. A lot of censorship here and there. But hey, if you watch my previous videos, you know where I stand on things like this. There's no such thing as a perfect government. Let's start from there, number one. Number two, if the people of a nation are prospering and the person who is in the government, charge, figurehead, whatever, is doing well for the people and they have a bit of dictatorial tendencies, me personally, I don't mind. I don't mind. Can I eat? Is there light? Are you investing in the youth? Is there infrastructure? Stuff like that is what really matters to me. Free speech. People can argue, you need free speech in case of a dictatorship because dictatorship have a past history of being handed over to, or rather, taken up by terrible people, right? But when dictatorship actually falls into the right hands, I say allow them to rule for a very long time because historically, whenever a good person comes into power and he hands over to the next person turns out to be a total psychopath and then undoes the nice things that this other person was doing. You can go into history time to time to time. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, the second thing that interested me about Magulufu's, oh Lord help me, President John's government was his crackdown on gay rights, LGBTQ. Now, in Africa, in case you're not African and you're watching this video, there's not a lot of rights given to, or rather, there's not a lot of interest, not right, let me not use that, interest given to particular um, subjects like this, like gay rights, because as a continent and in most countries in Africa, we are still trying to get basic things. We're still trying to eat, get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we don't really have the luxury to start protesting for gay rights when all of us as a people are still trying to survive. You know what I'm saying? Like you're under a government that doesn't care whether you eat, doesn't care whether there's light, doesn't care whether there's water, so we try to live first before we think about, rights. Like this is not even about gay rights, this is human rights. Like we're still trying to get to human rights first before we start thinking about, so both the gay people, the lesbians, the straight, everybody is trying to survive in Africa. So we don't really have the luxury to think about certain things. Now, that aside, John made a very, a very, very funny thing. He made it a law that hey, if you're gay, you're going to jail. But that was not what interested me. What interested me was he said his government said, and I'm going to just add allegedly, but it was very funny. He said, yeah, so hey, if you are a known, homosexual on social media and you have followers and most likely you write about homosexual stuff, yeah, hey, but you and your followers, all of you are going to jail. All of you are going to jail. And then the other thing he did allegedly that cracked me up was he was so serious about this gay thing. I'm almost tempted to allegedly ask, was he gay himself? Because the interest was interesting. He said his government created a certain group of people that included doctors who, when anybody who was suspected of being gay was brought in, he said, hey, doctor, hey, come, check his yansh. Why? Why were you going that far, sir? When I saw that, I was genuinely like about to take out my eyeballs, wash it, and put it back because I didn't understand the obsession. Like it's serious, but it's not that serious. Like your people are just benefiting from a government that has come from a long line of instability. Why are you worried about another man's anus? Hello. And then another thing that was terrible but funny, but honestly terrible, was his interest in contraceptives and the paradox that came along with that. So he was like, hey, women should not, take contraceptives, have kids. Why are you trying to prevent kids from coming? Stuff like that. And then in the same breath, he's like, but if you get pregnant and you're a student, once you get pregnant, the school has the right to expel you. That was a whole law. And I was just like, sir, what exactly are you trying to do? Like, what's the issue here? Like, do you want these girls to not continue with their lives, but yet you are the one advocating against pregnancy prevention? What's your problem? That's really the question I just. But anyways, all its funny laws aside, Tanzania thrived economically. Morally, I don't know what's going on in that country, but economically they were thriving, you know what I'm saying? Another scandal that hit Tanzania was his stance against COVID-19, where he was like, hey, yeah, hey, I prayed about it, that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist, that doesn't exist. We're not going to do no COVID vaccines in this country because as far as I'm concerned, COVID-19 does not exist. And was he wrong? All of us in 2026? Because he refused to let the vaccine rather come to his country. I'm not saying that COVID was not real. I'm just saying that he was against it because he did not want the vaccines to come to the country. Now here we are in 2026, and Pfizer and all these other people are being sued because there's a lot of disputes and legal claims against what was actually in that COVID vaccine. Because a lot of people, and I'm saying this as a doctor, a lot of people have come up to say their body has began reacting weird, doing a lot of weird symptoms and a lot of weird stuff ever since they took the vaccine. So, was John wrong? In a way, no. Was he a bit psychopathic on some topics? In a way, yes, allegedly. Anyways, so, he was a very funny character. And then in 2021, thereabouts, he disappeared from public eye, I think in the month of February, and then 10 days later, his death was announced. Now, remember that John had a habit of cutting budgets and basically not allowing the upper echelon to thrive the way they wanted to. When I say the upper echelon, I'm referring to those in his government. They were not, spending the national cake as they would, right? So we have the current president. That is when she came into power. She did not get elected into power. She inherited it because John mysteriously died. His death has me question a lot of things. The way he died, it was very, very suspicious. Very, very suspicious. We're not gonna start making up conspiracy theories. Now, here comes Mother Samia Suluhu Hassan. She's been in politics for a very long time, climbing her way up. When I was studying on her, so because she was a woman, obviously it was difficult because Africa is very patriarchally dominated. So you in politics as far back as before the 2010s, yeah, you were going to fight against a lot of sexism. But she did not give up. She continued to climb, even with marriage and everything. She continued to climb, even with the kids. She kept climbing in power from different positions, and finally she entered into vice presidency. And just to show you that it was a patriarchally dominated system, when Magufuli died, she was the last person to know about it. They didn't even want to tell her. There were a lot of factions that did not want her to inherit power. And now, looking back in 2020, or rather looking for, I don't even know, looking in 2026, in a way, I feel like siding with the factions, but we'll get to why in a bit. Anyway, so she enters power. And, she, at first, she's like a savior, a hero. She's saving lives. You know that ridiculous policy about how pregnant women, girls could not go back to school after they'd gotten pregnant? She said, hey, scrap that. Scrap it, because that's rubbish. And it is. What do you mean? What do any of you mean? Because a girl gets pregnant, she cannot go back to school. Like, I don't understand. What's that? So she said, scrap that. And, she's doing a lot of things. Now, one thing I like about these two Tanzania presidents is that they invest a lot in infrastructure. Even though there's a lot of news surrounding the current president, one thing I noticed about the both of them is that they had a love for infrastructure. So, Samia Suluhu, who comes into power, does all of these amazing things. And she even goes a step further, which is why a lot of Tanzanians were blindsided when she turned. She came in, you see that censorship that was in the previous presidency, she removed that. She released lots of political prisoners from jail. She restored media houses. She did a lot of things. So everybody was like, Mami Suluhu, Mami Sami. I don't know how they were saying it, but I just know they loved her. Because it looked like, we've been gagged for a long time and now you're giving us a chance to breathe. We love that. We love it. We love it. We love you. You're our mother. They began to lift her up in reverence, not knowing she was about to stain all of their whites. I don't know what happened. But Samia woke up one morning. I think it was very close to the next election. She began to, I'm very sure, get a lot of phone calls. She began to see that if I want to get power again, if I want to be re-elected, I might need to bow to the system that has been there before me. Now, when somebody gets into power, you need to pay attention to those who put her in power. If it is a group of people who put you in power, a party or whatever, you will have to answer to that party and pay them in whatever they require. Money, position, policies, laws, blood, whatever it is. If you are put in organically, then there are certain prices you will not have to pay. You will definitely answer to the people. But if you are put in by a group of people where it's just you and them, then yeah, that's where the problem comes in. And I generally believe, allegedly, that this is what happened with Samia. She came in wanting change, but then I think she went up against a system and they said, hey, this is what we want. And so she became hero for the people and then went into power drunk dictator. How did she do this? You see all those people that she was releasing from prison? Yeah, here she put them back. The Tanzanians could no longer speak freely. Leaders of opposition parties were illegally detained over very flimsy accusations. Oh my God, he's a traitor to the government of Tanzania. Why? We don't know. We don't know. We just know that he's a traitor, and that's what the Tanzania government aide said. So we had a lot of people that could have run in the next election that suddenly started disappearing. Any sort of protest or resistance to what the government was doing, which was cracking down on political opposition parties, on youth, anybody that dared to speak against. They were disappearing, like broad daylight kidnapping from a lot of eyewitnesses. Nobody saw them again. Some people saw a lot of dead bodies appear days after they were kidnapped. Some never saw their loved ones again. Like, it was a lot going on under Mama Samia. A lot was happening over the mother of the nation, taking feminism 1,000 years back, because you had a job to prove that women are capable of being in power and doing a lot of things. But now you just taught all of us that it doesn't matter your gender. Can you do the job? Do you care about the people? Are you a power drunk villain? It doesn't care. It doesn't matter the gender anymore. You know what I'm saying? So on election day, Tanzania's last election, which was October, was it? The opposition party had been disqualified from partaking of the elections. Why? Because they had a protest, and they said, or rather they had a news press gathering, and they said they wanted INEC, their their National Electoral Committee, to be independent of any external influence. That's all they said, and they were disqualified. Their leader put in jail. Why? Like I said, traitor. So a lot of strange things were happening. So by the time it was close to the election, when you looked at the ballot boxes, the notable political opposition that could have influenced the elections was missing. And the only people who were on the election, or rather the ballot papers, were names that nobody recognized because they were small, did not have influence as much as the party that had been disqualified. Young Tanzanians stood up to protest, and allegedly they were shut down. Internet went out, curfew was imposed, people were killed, arrested, all of that stuff was going on. And meanwhile, on the TV screens across Tanzania, the election votes were peacefully counted. This is the story of how a woman who was known as the woman with the soft voice became a tyrant. You know what I'm saying? Like she just flipped the switch. So you see, you must keep one eye open when you're meeting your heroes, because they could always disappoint you. I do not think that she initially wanted this for Tanzania. I genuinely believe that she wanted to follow a particular path set for her, but she had a choice. You could either be the leader that the system wants you to be, and then the system will place you there, or you could be the leader for the people and suffer most likely some sort of loss. And she said, sign me up for power, honey. And she took that. Now, like I said, she still is a person who is interested in developing a nation, because she's partnered recently with a lot of large powerful nations, one of which is Dubai. And she's consistently, you can see her gearing up for foreign investors. So that's a good part of our government, but the rest is in shambles. You know what I'm saying? So, she could still change back. Let's see how it goes. But it's just really, really sad how you could love someone 1 minute and then the next minute decide to show you shady, decide to put their fingers in your eye. Anyways, I hope I, explained the story in a way that gave honor and voices to Tanzanians who can't speak up because of what's happening. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about Tanzania. I honestly wish them a better government that doesn't have to shoot them to get their points across. That's all for this video. I'll see you all on the next episode. Toodoo.